In this lesson, we'll create the blanket. So we're going to be using cloth simulation for this, so it's quite exciting. So if we go to create, and we'll create a plane. Actually, we won't create a plane, we're going to create a grid, because that will be already subdivided. So if we create a grid, you can see there it is, and it's just a polygon surface, but we've got options here of how many times we want to subdivide it, which is a lot more useful than just having just a plane. Okay, and before we move it, we're just going to add divisions here. So I'm just going to type in 50 and 50. I'm just going to frame this. Zoom in, and the reason for this is we need to have a nice high resolution mesh in order to get some detailed results for our cloth. We'll apply it, but basically it won't look as nice, so you want to make sure that these squares are the same size. Basically it's going to create a particle. Okay, so let's just go ahead and press tab, come out of that, and we'll press Alt H to bring everything back. Just going to move this into position, so we're just going to move this above the bed, and we're just going to drape it onto the bed and see how that looks. So let's just move this across. Got snapping on, turn off snapping, and let's just scale this, so S to scale, and let's just have a look at this, something like this. In fact, I'm going to scale my bed up first, so let me just undo that. I think it looks a bit small here, so I might just scale this up. So grab this guy, and we're just going to press S, and if it scales separately like that, you want to press escape and then choose the median. Okay, and then that way it will scale together. So press S again, so they're going to scale together, and scale it up to whatever you want it to be. So maybe a little bit, maybe 20% bigger. By eye, I can turn on snapping and then use this. There we go. Alright, so let's just scale this up. Scale and okay. Computer will go through and calculate every frame and what that object should look like at every frame. Okay, so this will be a cloth object. So if we click on physics here, you can see different types of physics here, and we're going to select our object and click on cloth, and that's going to basically apply a cloth modifier. So if you looked inside the modifier section, you can now see that there's a cloth modifier applied, and this is where you go to adjust it. We've got a bunch of different It just means that they'll simulate and try to simulate the look of cotton. And we're just going to go into cloth collision here. And by default, to make it a little bit faster, it doesn't calculate collisions with itself, which is not realistic, obviously. So we do need to turn on self collision. And I'm just going to turn the quality. In fact, let me just leave this for if you scrub in this blue area, you can see you can play back the animation. It's sort of cached it in the memory there, but if you go past that, it's not going to play because it hasn't calculated that yet. So this stuff is stored in memory, the blue stuff, and you can play it back by just, scrubbing it or rewinding it and playing it. Okay, so first thing we'll do is just make this look smooth. So we'll just come over to Tools here, and we'll just press Smooth, and that should help us out a little bit. Got to press play again. And this is the number of times it calculates per frame. So the more it splits it up, the higher quality the solve will be, and it will look better. So let's just change this to 10. Obviously it's going to be slower. And then we've got down here cloth collision, the quality of the collision here, and we're just going to change that to maybe 7. Okay, and you can have it offset the distance. If it's intersecting these objects, you can have it offset a little bit so it doesn't go through the object. The faster the object is moving, the more steps you need, because each frame it moves further, so it needs to be split into 10 different pieces so it can calculate what's going on. So let's just rewind and play, and you can see it's a bit slower, but it also okay, so that's what we got. So it looks like it's a bit small, and it's also a bit boring, so I'm going to try to rotate it a little bit so it's a little bit random. There, because it's not set up as a collision object. So if I just come around here, you can see it kind of goes through that, but it looks a bit more interesting having it to the side there. So I'm just going to move it down a tiny bit. Oops, got snapping on, turn off snapping. So just move it. Okay, I'm going to stop it there, and I've just let it come to rest, and so I think that's in a good position there. If you ever wanted to, render this out or use this kind of cloth animation, you can go to the cloth cache, and every time you press play, it's basically caching it into memory, and you can bake that cache into your scene file so that it stays there when you open it again. then it can just basically look at that frame and say, okay, this thing looks like this, and it's basically going to render that. So this is what you do in order to bake it. If you press bake, it's just going to go through by itself and just bake all of this stuff by itself, and that will be in the file. So when you press save, it's going to save. Currently this will not save, so this little cache that we've just made will not save with the file. We'd have to press play again. So what we're going to do, we're not interested in we can press smooth here, and what we'll do in the next lesson is sculpt this a little bit just to smooth out some of this stuff and maybe make a few wrinkles. In this lesson we use cloth to create our blanket here.